we welcome you to today's Global Perspectives Institute. As you know, the topic that we'll be focused on is war-torn Ukraine and the courageous experiences and stories impacting Alabama and the United States. We're delighted today to have a very unique panel. We're so thankful for their willingness to come to the table and share their voices and experiences so that we can discuss the war between Russia and the Ukraine and the widespread impact beyond their borders and across many sectors: government, business, nonprofit, healthcare. Demands for humanitarian assistance are increasing each day. And we know that in just 1 month, millions of women, children, and families have been forced to flee the violence in the Ukraine. Each day when I watch the news and I hear the numbers and I see the visuals, it's an experience like I've never had before. This is not the first war in our history of the world, but this is the first war where we have communication technology that brings everything to us immediately. So I'm delighted that we will begin our discussion with one of our colleagues from our sister organization in Chicago, World Chicago. Our visitor today will be Julia Sosnivka. And Julia is a program associate at World Chicago who joined in January 2020. She received her bachelor's degree in global and international studies with a minor in mathematics and European studies and political science. And she's participated in cultural exchanges focused on citizen diplomacy in Taiwan, France, and Italy throughout her young adult life. She's volunteered at local organizations like the American Ukrainian Youth Association, where they work to educate the youth about Ukrainian history, culture, and language. We're so proud to have her this afternoon, and she will begin our conversation with sharing about her experiences living and working in the United States, especially watching the crisis taking place in her home country. Julia, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate the warm welcome and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to see everyone here. As mentioned, I am born and raised native of Chicago. Although I was born here, I am very proud to also call myself Ukrainian. My parents immigrated here in 96 and 97 respectively, and I'm the first in my family to be born here. Chicago is very unique just because of its high density population results in a very diverse communities. We have 77 unique neighborhoods, including the officially recognized Ukrainian village. It's just about a mile or two west of downtown Chicago, and it has Ukrainian churches, schools, organizations, restaurants, you name it. When my parents came over here, they immediately settled down in Ukrainian village. And as I mentioned, although I was born and raised here, it did not stop my parents from instilling Ukrainian values and traditions, before we can assimilate with the communities that we have here. So before I could even speak English, I was speaking Ukrainian at home, and we were attending these organizations and we were members of our community. We attended Ukrainian schools. We attended Ukrainian organizations, dance recitals, I mean, you name it, before we went to American school. And I was the first to be born here out of my family. My younger brother is the second. I'm also the second in my family to have completed their education in the United States. And to us, that was a huge accomplishment just because of, everything that my parents went through just to get here. And to us, just because we were born here did not mean that we were any less Ukrainian than that of my older brother or that of my family members or anyone else that came here. It just meant that we had the pros and the cons of not just being Ukrainian, but also being American. And to us, being Ukrainian American meant that we also encompassed a little bit of everything or everyone in the Chicagoland area. And I was mentioning this earlier, Chicago has the second largest diaspora of Ukrainians in the United States. And with that, we are able to essentially have a lot of partnerships with other communities across the United States, but as well as across the world, and especially with Ukraine. We have, professional dance ensembles. We have Ukrainian youth organizations where essentially, as mentioned earlier, teaches the youth in Chicago, whether they came here from Ukraine or are second or third generation Ukrainians, the history, the culture, the traditions, the language of Ukraine. I've had the opportunity to participate with these organizations. I've also had the opportunity to perform in Spain with our dance ensembles to share our culture as well as our history. And I've also been able to join our Sister Cities program, where Chicago has a Sister Cities partnership with Kiev. And so there are many different ways that the community here engages with Ukraine, and it allows the youth as well as adults to engage in these efforts. And it's done through organizations like the Ukrainian American Youth Association, the Ukrainian Cultural Center, the Sister Cities program that we have here, and so forth. And so when this war sort of broke out, and I don't want to say that, we immediately acted just because this happened, but our efforts to support Ukrainians kind of began way back when. This started in 2014 when the first sort of aggressions began, and people here almost immediately rallied together. One of the things that has been very inspiring, I think, to my family and I the most was how quickly people here were able to get together. It was very heartbreaking, and working in an industry that's so heavily involved with what's going on, you kind of, I don't want to say begin to reevaluate what you're doing, but you really sort of sense the gravity of what you are doing and where you're working in. And Jackie had already mentioned that I work with the same network that she does, and we essentially implement international exchanges that are sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. And it quickly became, what do we do now? What is our next sort of efforts? And so the community here mobilized back in 2014, and they were doing this by taking donations as well as sending supplies over to those that are defending the eastern portions of Ukraine. And then when the war broke out a month ago, it was very emotional. And so every sort of negative feeling you can have, you felt. And what made it harder for us, I think, was that we were not there, and we're so far away. It becomes, how do we help from the ground here? It was also one of those things where we were finding out in real time, because for us, it was a Wednesday evening, we're still awake. Some of us are with friends, some are, engaging with others. And our family is asleep and has no idea that half of the country is being shelled at the moment. So we called them, which was our time, 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. I'm sorry. For them is just about dawn. It's just before, sunrise. It's just before they're waking up. And so we woke them up and we informed them of what was going on. And our efforts quickly became, how do we get them what they need, but also how do we get everyone out in the safest manner possible? My father's cousins are currently fighting on the front lines. My mother's brother is teaching civilians in Lviv, which is where my family's from, different tactics and strategies on how to defend the people and the city in the best mannered way. And so it becomes a full effort thing that everyone sort of has to participate in. Everyone has to put in any possible way that they can. In Chicago alone, we've been having a protest or a rally, almost, I don't want to say protest, it's more of a rally every week, every Sunday, people gather in downtown Chicago and we'll walk to different embassies and consulates, showing support. And it is very heartwarming to see that it's not just the Ukrainian community that's coming out to show the support. It's every community is coming out to show their support. People that, have never affiliated with Ukrainians before or don't know Ukrainians are coming out to support us. It was also one of those things where you realize that you as a Ukrainian American are becoming I don't want to say gatekeeper, but sort of that middleman for those that don't know where to go or don't know who to speak to or don't know, the full details of what's going on. And if they do, is there something that they're missing just because American media is not Ukrainian media, and so forth. And so we kind of become the people of, where do you go to donate? Where do you send supplies? What do you do? Which can be very overwhelming, I think, for anyone, but it also shows the sort of importance of what position you are in as an educator, almost, to kind of tell people what the best route would to be and what is the most helpful thing, and what are the local organizations in order to do this. And so, like I mentioned, the Ukrainian community here almost immediately rallied. My family and I almost immediately joined the efforts in doing so. There are multiple organizations across the city of Chicago that's kind of, provided support and are accepting donations in order to send supplies. Some of the main ones include the Kiev Alliance, which was assembled by the Chicago Sister Cities International Organization, specifically the Kiev Committee, which I have a pleasure of joining and helping those efforts. They take donations, as well as they have different efforts for drives and then supplying those materials to those that need it in Ukraine. Another big one here has been MIST, or MIST Karpate, which is the Chicago branch that's been accepting donations for tactical gear, medical supplies, military gear, and so forth. And so they have Amazon wish lists where people just send donations or just, purchase the items. Hromovitsa Ukrainian Dance Ensemble, which is one of the main dance ensembles of Chicago, has been also gathering supplies and personally, either taking these items to Poland and then somehow meeting people to drive them to Ukraine, or they've been sending them out. There's an organization called Razum for Ukraine, which has been working on a more national level for providing resources. We've had, what else? I can't off the top, I don't remember off the top of my head, but we have just multiple efforts and different ways of going through about it. I think one of the last ones that I forgot is UMANA, which is the Ukrainian Medical Association in North America that's been accepting medical supplies and having practitioners in a way either go there to help, or also just provide information on what the best ways to, do first aid. Have been, doing that. So I can share all those details with Jackie, but that's just kind of what's been happening within the Chicagoland area and what it meant to our family when, everything went down. So thank you so much, Jackie, for giving me the time to kind of speak about our experiences. We're super grateful to be here and have this platform to share what's going on.
Thank you so much, Julia. And just to reiterate, we are sister organizations, Global Ties Alabama and World Chicago, and we work to help shape the U.S. foreign policy one handshake at a time. So the citizen diplomacy that Julia is able to promote in the work that she does is also something that she's living right now, and we're just so thankful for that. I'm really pleased, right? And by the way, the list of organizations, we will be able to share that with you post the webinar. Julia has sent that to us, and we can send them out to anybody who's interested in those organizations that are in the midst of providing support. I'm really pleased now to introduce Yarina Zerba. Yarina was one of our open world emerging leaders in 2013. She came to Alabama as part of a 5-woman delegation. So I was so excited about that. And just a few years ago, we received a call from her and she said, "Oh, I'm coming back and can I visit your office?" And we said, "Sure." Well, what we didn't realize was the ongoing relationship that she had developed with somebody that she met during home hospitality. It was an alley party that she attended while she was a visitor. And that person is now her husband, and they now have 2 daughters. And in next month, she will be receiving her MBA from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. So I just thought when I got an email from her a couple of weeks ago, this is strange. She said she was in Romania. And I said, she just had 2 little girls. What is she doing in Romania? But she's a fierce leader. She's a humanitarian. And I didn't understand the depth of her commitment until she was there and sent an email of her experiences. So Yarina, please share what you've been experiencing as you support your homeland, even from afar. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for this amazing introduction. When war started, like for me, it's life divided, till February 24, and after it completely changed. When war started, it just the feeling you can't eat, you can't sleep, and you even can't enjoy your kids, because when you look at them, it's all the time I saw, these kids in Ukraine, that some are in subway, some are under attack, and unfortunately, we have very bad statistics of how many kids died in that war, just innocent kids. To do something is like a relief for you, because when you're trying to help, it's you feel better. You're like you are trying to do some drop of help to this big ocean of people who are helping already. And I defined for myself like the mission in that war. What can I do? So I can help those who wants to help Ukraine. And when Yulia was talking that about the feeling of being middleman, I understand what it's about. Because many people in US wants to help in different ways, and there were a group of veterans who were going to Ukraine through Romania, and they were going with humanitarian mission to help with evacuations, to help refugees, and they just reached to me for some advice how to get bus, how to get from here to there, about the place to stay and stuff like that. And I asked, so is anybody with you who understand the Ukrainian language? They said, no, nobody ever actually been in Ukraine. So, and I decided to go with them. And I am glad that I did. Our trip went a little bit longer. I mean, we initially we stayed for a few days in New York for planning, and then we stayed in Bucharest longer than we expected, because we were waiting for medical supplies that were going separately. And it came back total for 10 days that I was gone from home. So I had to return earlier to my family, to kids, because I promised them that I will be back in a week, and in other circumstances I will be back in 2 weeks. So I had to return before even coming to Ukraine, but they did, and the veterans that I were with, and they are currently in Ukraine helping however they can, and this is really big sacrifice and really big help those people who are going there. And there are people in Huntsville also. When I came back, I got to know about them. So also a man who is a combat veteran, he plans to go actually in a week to Ukraine, and even to join the International Legion, to be with shoulder to shoulder with other soldiers in Ukraine. Also, there is an EMT person who wants to help on the medical side, And just I see my role like helping just those people who wants to help to Ukraine, just to get information, or whatever any other assistance they need, because it's a new country and very tough circumstances. Another thing that I realized when being in Romania, that as I said, that this energy of trying to help is so big, and people, are instantly reacted and wanted to provide aid. So now we came to the stage when we need to think how to make this aid more efficient, to look for the ways to deliver it faster, to get it cheaper. And what I saw in Romania, so I knew that in US there are many organizations and people who collected aid, and physically, I mean that bought medical supplies and food and everything. So one of the possible is just like a suggestion, that one of the possible way how to deliver it faster is to source it from the neighboring countries, neighboring to Ukraine, and then ship it to Ukraine from there. But fundraise money here in North America. In that way, the aid can be delivered faster to Ukraine, and we can save a lot of money on shipping aid, because you need to ship aid from North America by plane. That I was told that the cost of one cargo plane just cost is $250,000. So for that money, more supplies can be bought in these neighboring countries. And also, our neighbors, they took a big pressure, the accepting hosting millions of people, like Poland, more than 2 million of people accepted just this country. Moldova is small in population, that Moldova accepted as 10% of its own population refugees. Romania also a big inflow of refugees. So when we are sourcing aid, so these countries need help too. They also need support. So when we source aid from those countries, it's like helping economies of these countries. And overall, there are like 4 million people, almost 4 million people that left Ukraine into abroad. But also there are almost 7 million people who were, like, we call them internally displaced people. This is those who left one regions of, for instance, east and or north or south regions of Ukraine and moved to west. There are like 11 regions in Ukraine that considered to be more safer, in the meaning that there are no Russian troops there, but they still can reach those regions, striking missiles into that region. Like the biggest aid and support that Ukraine need is really military aid. It's because, for instance, if there is some sort of no-fly zone or just support with equipment and tools to stop missiles, we are actually saving people. And for instance, that even western part of Ukraine would be completely safe if we would have this possibility to shut down missiles that Russia is striking into Ukraine. So military support is the biggest need, because military support is a humanitarian, is solving humanitarian problems. It's safety for people. So, and I want to use this chance to say, like, thank you to US and the US citizens, because we feel support from in this area in the military, and a little bit more needs to be done in order we can stop Russia and defend democracy and freedom in the world. I will be happy to answer some questions lately if there will be some, and thank you again for this opportunity to talk.
Irina, I want to again thank you for your courage, leaving your home and the safety of your home, and going to this what you would know as a the area, the culture, but you don't know the crisis that you're entering into, and you were courageous enough to do that. Right now, I'd like to introduce Sergey Bralin. Sergey is a global businessman, and he has served in the aviation electronics community. He has extensive experience in international business development, holding positions in corporations based in the Ukraine, Switzerland, and the US. He lives in northern Alabama, and he is on the board of Global Ties Alabama. He's on speed dial for a number of the delegations that we host, and he's always there to be supportive. So now we'd like to ask Sergey if he would share with a business perspective what the impact of the crisis in the Ukraine has had on the company and companies that he knows of on their business operations. Sergey?
Thank you, Jackie. And thank you for all those who joined today and who care about Ukraine and the peace in the world in general. Thank you, Julia and Irina. And as a matter of fact, we were acquainted with Irina exactly through Global Ties Alabama many years ago when she came to the United States for the first time. And then when she came back again, we connected again. And I actually, during today's speech, I will show you how life is interesting and how all those connections which Global Ties Alabama create are actually working as a creative force in this world. But before I continue, I wanted to kind of give a perspective on how much effort is typically put in something to be creative and positive, and how big of effect the war and any type of destructive conflicts are putting in the meanings of time and space and volumes and human life. And just because of that, I decided to do a small presentation so you guys can relate to all those dimensions and to see the faces of peace and creativity, and imagine how the destruction will affect not only businesses but the lives of many people. Let's see if technology works. Okay, finally. And once you see the screen, please confirm if you see the full screen. Okay, thank you. So basically, just a small example of a relatively small project globally, but probably a big project for Alabama, of how many people were involved in creating it and making it happen, and how many people and families will be influenced on the scale of personalities in the whole countries just because this project is stalled right now because of this horrific conflict. So I myself working for Barron for many years, and this company is known for doing a weather technology, and some of you are using this technology every day when you use TV sets or mobile apps which sends you the weather. But very few people realize how actually it's coming to the screens and what is behind it, and so how much technology is involved. You could see on the screens very quickly the flow of data which is absorbed in the environment by many thousands, literally thousands of different sensors, technological equipment, including big sensors like weather radars, sending the data to special collection centers, processing using a very elaborate software which is called numeric weather prediction to calculate all the possible outcomes of all the interactions which are going in the atmosphere and the water, and then doing a special processing for early warning, like severe winds, tornadoes, hail, and so on and so forth, and then displaying all that and sending it to all, let me see, to all the end users, whether it's government, whether it's public, whether it's research centers, or anybody who is interested in atmospheric research and the weather. And this technology requires a lot of work at the level of the governments to instill this infrastructure in the country. It's typically years and years of work. As an example, one of the pieces of such technology at the National Weather Service in the United States, which is consisted of 180 big weather radars, was modernized by Barron in 2014. And the result of that is always on your screen as a precipitation map. Once you start doing projects like this, you typically involve multitudes of specialists in each country which participates, and multitudes of end users and multitudes of financial organizations and so on. So our project started back in 2016, and Irina, as a matter of fact, was a part of it at the beginning, while helping us dealing with top level government delegations from Ukraine, and culminated last September when the President of the United States and the President of Ukraine, during their meeting, considered a so-called Marshall Plan for Ukrainian economy. And that was way before this conflict started. This project, actually projects paperwork, consisted of a big number of infrastructural projects, which total value was 287 billion US dollars. Just in the first phase, there were about $5 billion, which consisted of Westinghouse, multiple nuclear reactors in Ukraine, Lockheed Martin technology, Motorola technology, Caterpillar technology, including engines for pumping stations for the gas transit, and including our project for the total modernization of Ukrainian National Hydromet Service. And on page 11 of this document, you could see on line 2, our project valued at 300, it was a mistake actually, yeah, it is 0.3, so it's 300 million US dollars, just our project. All other projects are somewhere between 100 million and multiple billions of dollars. So that is kind of giving you a perspective of what was involved just recently between United States and the Ukraine. Even this $300 million required Barron to build up a relationship with multiple partners which will do this project, and one of those partners is Danaher Corporation, one of the biggest technological investing holding companies in the United States, which has multiple factories globally, and a part of the project would be their equipment. Earth Networks is a company which does lightning detection technology. Harris, which does for National Weather Service all satellite monitoring of the situation globally, and then providing this info. The financing was to be by United States Exim Bank, which took a big involvement in this project at the level of the board member, Mr. Spencer Bacchus, who is, by the way, Alabamian. At the level of Vice President of Exim Bank, Mrs. Annette Bimaresh, who is actually ethnical Ukrainian from the Western Ukraine, but she was born here in the United States, and so on and so forth. I cannot even list how many other companies would be involved in terms of the project. So this is the picture of peace 6 years ago, and you see the smiley person there, Irina, who just had a nice speech. And you see simple people standing here on the US ground, but actually those people are top level Ukrainian official. One of them is a general major of Ukrainian emergency services. He is a career government employee, one of the top level employees in the Ukrainian government. One of them is a deputy head of the meteorological department of the Ukrainian Defense Meteorological Service. One of them is a parliamentary member, and the other ones are working for Ukrainian Hydromet Services. and they were here in the United States, and they were welcomed by United States National Weather Service, United States FEMA, United States Office of Water Prediction here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, multiple United States TV stations which do weather for the public here in Alabama or in Florida or elsewhere. They were welcomed by Birmingham's Sister City Committee, and one of the gentlemen who is on our board, Mr. Mark Jackson, took part in this project. Honorary Consular of Ukraine in Birmingham, Alabama, Mr. Scotty Colson, and all his staff. I cannot mention all people, but Department of Commerce of United States at the level of their representatives in the US Embassy, their advocacy center in Washington, DC, Department of State, all the efforts for 5 years culminated back last March in Ukraine, still peace, signing of the memorandum of cooperation between the Ministry of Interior Affairs of Ukraine, and in this particular case, it is sub-agency of Ukrainian Emergency Services Agency and Baron Corporation. And here is the Minister of Interior, Mr. Avakov, and the head of the Emergency Services of Ukraine, which is a counterpart of FEMA. And of course, you see myself there. And then here is the notification by US Embassy, who took a big role in this project to happen. All their staff for multiple years, not a single rotation, you know, because people rotate. Several rotations of people in the embassy took part to support it. We had to deal with multiple ministries in Ukraine, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Finance. We had to deal with the caucus, Ukrainian caucus in Congress, including Brian Fitzpatrick and all other members, Ukrainian committee in the Senate, head of the Ukrainian security services, and so on and so forth. And basically, the level of involvement in such projects, and as I said, my project is probably one of the smallest ones out of that whole list of 287 billion worth of projects, requires enormous effort on the part of all the suppliers, all the customers, the financial institutions, and all the people who are not indifferent to the progress of both countries in the level of research, technology development, infrastructure built up, supporting the security, both food, public, and military. And our project was supposed to be one of the backbones, not only for the public safety and the food safety of Ukraine, but also the backbone of Ukrainian military and security safety, because today the weather systems are part of so-called 4CI, which is a complete automated troops management system, and you cannot deploy your troops efficiently on the ground, in the air, in the sea without complete automated weather systems. So one of the actually reasons of the Russians miscalculating the strength of Ukraine was that they were thinking that Ukrainian military was underdeveloped, which in a certain sense didn't happen because of time issues. Yes, nobody could buy an army for Ukraine. That is true. United States supported Ukraine heavily in developing modern police force, modern National Guard force, modern border troops force, which was all under the Ministry of Interior. But no country can buy an efficient army to anybody. It requires a mutual effort between the country and its partners. And we were a part of, just a small part of the project, which would support the Ukrainian army to be very efficient in its deployment. Again, there was not enough time. The conflict started, and when Ukraine was blinded, unfortunately, by precise Russian weapons, Ukrainian Hydromet basically lost most of their raiders. So Baron decided to support Ukrainian military, and we took a lot of calculating power, and we are calculating the weather on the territories surrounding Ukraine, which is including Poland, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, Russia, Belarus, and we're supporting remotely the Ukrainian Center for Hydrometeorology, which supports Ukrainian military right now. I can speak for hours and hours and hours how much effort and how much resources are taken by multiple companies as ours here in Alabama or all around the United States to develop similar systems in Ukraine. But just what I showed you on the screen gives you a little bit of understanding of the values, the time spans, and how easy it is to destroy within 1 month the values which can be rebuilt only in years to come. We will definitely do it. Ukrainians are resilient. This nation survived through bigger conflicts, but we want to stress one more, that the ripples of this conflict will go in all dimensions, in years, in lives, and we hope that all the leaders will come to their senses and they will turn to creative side versus destructive side. As far as helping Ukraine, by the virtue of being a part of GTA, a part of US Ukrainian Business Council Executive Committee, where we have 200 biggest US corporations and Ukrainian corporations as a part of it. Working with the Ukrainian embassy and ambassador personally, and the commercial representatives of the Ukrainian embassy who are working with American organizations, including United Ukraine Relief Fund in the United States, and all other organizations which are trying to organize support in the supply chain from US and globally to the countries which neighbor Ukraine, like Romania, Poland, Hungary, and then further on distribute within Ukraine, which is one of the biggest challenges. I do have a certain level of information of how all these processes are working, including Irina is providing a tremendous effort in trying to deliver and distribute products around the country. And having contact to Ukrainian National Guard and Ukrainian military who can help pick up the products and distribute around Ukraine, even though the situation is not that easy right now. So my contact is at the GTA, and if any of you will have any questions, we will be more than open to share and to continue helping Ukraine as long as it needs to. Thank you for your attention.
Sergey, thank you so much. You took my breath away with this information about Baron. I'm always intrigued by the work that Baron does in terms of weather systems globally. And so we've seen the individuals, we've seen the business sector, and all of us who have spoken thus far have been here in the United States. We are very, very fortunate today to have one of our global colleagues who is the leader of a nonprofit in Moldova, one of the adjacent countries that are helping in a very strong way to receive the refugees and to also provide humanitarian support. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce Mariana Meg-Turkin. It's almost 10 p.m. in Moldova, so I appreciate her for joining us. She was college educated in the United States, and she's an advisor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova. So we're very, very proud to be able to welcome her today. She is the leader for Moldova for Peace. Mariana, please share your experiences and what we can do to be supportive.
Thank you, Jacqueline. You know, I woke up on the 24th of February from the loud noise that I heard. So even from my apartment, from my bed, I could hear a little bit before 6 a.m. The big noises. I woke up and the first thing I did, I looked into my phone, simply because from my work, I heard the signal sounds where my colleagues were writing already, the war has started, and my mouth dried. I turned on the TV and I called my mom. This is exactly what anybody would do, because you turn to the loved ones. And I called my mom and my dad, and my mom answered the phone and she told me, just stay calm. Your dad went out at 5 a.m. when we heard the first noises. And these were not, he got into the house and he said, Anastasia, this is not thunder, Anastasia. The war has started. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm not in a country where the war is happening, and I'm really emotional when I tell you this. But we're really close to what is happening, and we heard the noise of the bombs, and we see on a daily basis the people that cross the borders. As you said, Jacqueline, I am one of the advisors to the Prime Minister, and I have taken this job at the beginning of February, namely on February 1st, on education and youth, and I did work with diaspora and some social matters. And everybody kept saying, oh, you're here for the right time, because I was able to put at work a large program for youth. I cannot go back to anything that I have started in February. Since the 24th, I'm specifically in the national unit on managing the refugee crisis. I call it crisis, not because it's about people, but it's about the sadness that brought these people over the borders to Moldova. So all in all, the unit that I am chairing, or I am facilitating, this is called Moldova for Peace. And this is the biggest platform of people, simple, wonderful people who put themselves together from organizations, from charity organizations, from volunteering organizations, young people from different centers, everybody who have put themselves together. The platform itself is more than 5,000 volunteers who have put themselves from the borders to the placement centers, to any of the services provided to the refugees. Up till now, we have more than 400 people, 400,000 people who have crossed the borders from the Ukrainian side. It must sound to you as a small number, but it's not when it comes to Moldova, which is a little bit over 2 million in population. This is even less than Kiev itself, if it comes to the number of population in my country. And namely, the civil society, the organizations and the volunteers are the first ones that have given the support to the refugees who crossed the borders. And the government has put in place a governmental unit on managing the crisis. The crisis, the management unit that we have created, we had no manual. Trust me, when you're in a country like Moldova, UNHCR, which is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, has been dealing about refugees in Moldova, but you would have like 200 people. Most of the people would actually come from other countries transiting towards the European Union. So whatever started on the 24th was very new to us. So the management crisis in the unit that came to manage the crisis came in place with our own experience. So we created these cluster groups from the authorities, international organizations like UN agencies, EU, European Union agencies, national organizations from here, in order to be able to respond to the needs of the refugees, starting with transportation. And that meant from the borders, most of the refugees would not pay for the transportations. We ensure that these people are transferred, whether to the other border to leave the country or to the placement centers and so on. Now, transportation unit is working on embarking people on planes to support them to fly, whether it's to Austria or Germany or to France. These are the slots that have been given to us by these countries in order to support us with the refugees in that sense. We have the medical assistance, and if the first wave did not need so much of medical assistance, the next waves, the next people, when it comes to the second week, the third week and so on, These were people who not only were injured from the war, but we're talking about people with chronic diseases or people that needed medical attention. So the medical assistance is very much in place, and from the borders all the way in the country. We are happy, you know, among the sad news, we're happy to read in the news when another Ukrainian refugee has given birth to twins, or there's this Ukrainian woman, she just crossed the borders and she gave birth to a child right at the triage center at the border. So, you know, these miracle, I mean, it's only a bit of news, yet they make it, you know, to smiles when it comes to those moments. So out of 400,000 people who have crossed the borders, at the moment we have more than 1,000 who are stationed here. This number goes down as by day leave the country, and most of the times these are refugees that are working on their documents in order to be able to fly further on to Romania, to Poland, to other countries that accept refugees. I have to tell you that out of this 100,000 refugees, up to 66% are women and girls. Up to only, I would say, 20% live in placement centers. We don't have the typical, tents and outside the cities. People live in the houses of the Moldovans, and this is the biggest model so far in the life of the experience of refugees. As I said, almost 80% or more than 80% are stationed in Moldovan houses, living with Moldovans. I must tell you that we use Russian language as a language for communication, not as discord in that sense. But Moldova has never been at war with Ukraine. Moldovans have friends in Ukraine, relatives, and so on. So people stay with Moldovans in their houses, or rent apartments or rooms, and prefer not to stay in shelters or in that place. But we do also have people who are stationed in shelters. We have 105 placement centers, and obviously when it comes to the support that we have got so far from UN agencies, from the European Union, from international organizations, were how to support these refugees. Half of these refugees are children from 0 to 18 years old. When I give you these numbers, it's not to impress you with the statistics, but it's to give you a reality of what we're dealing here. It's not only about mattresses and folding beds and blankets and pillows. It's about the needs of these people who are stationed here. We're talking about hygienic packs. We're talking about baby food. We're talking about canned food. We're talking about clothes. We're talking about toiletries, anything that a person would need to live on from day to day, reality. From that perspective, in a great cooperation with UN agencies, which is UNHCR and World Food Program, and actually one of the biggest donors so far is the US, which is amazing to put it forward this way. And just today I had a meeting with the Secretary of the Government and the one of the US State Department PRM, which is Population, Refugees and Migration Officer here in Moldova, and the DSM, which is the Deputy Chief of Mission in Moldova, just to discuss the 2 cash programs that we're launching. One cash program is to support the refugees. It's a super fast program that we have launched, where we will register all the refugees here on the territory of Moldova, and they will receive a cash to support their living here. But also another cash program is designated to the families. This is to support them in hosting the refugees, whether it's electricity or we're still in cold times, so energy and so on. Again, all of these programs are made possible with the support from the humanitarian, help that we get from abroad, with the support of different governments when it comes to the work that we do with refugees. But above all, obviously, it's about the civil society that has put themselves together and their partnerships with diverse organizations from around the world. We're celebrating in terms of the partnerships, yet I have to say that we're still in need of cash and work, because Moldovan government has advanced for the first 2 weeks when the organizations were not yet here, or the institutions. it has advanced all the costs for the refugees. And again, I mentioned the fact that we treat the refugees as they are our guests, although it's not the right time and not the right way to receive guests. But I have to say it, we treat them with dignity. From day four of the war, Moldova has opened itself up to the refugees. Any child can become a student or can enroll in education in schools or universities and colleges. Any person that is on the territory of the Republic of Moldova can get an ID number in just in a few seconds and can seek employment. This having said, social cohesion is one of our priorities. It's not only the first support that we can add, but it's the social cohesion of these people on the territory of the Republic of Moldova. I have tried to be in short, when it comes to what we do on a daily basis, and I apologize for my emotion. I was leaving the government building at 3 or 4 in the morning. This is how hard it was because the lines at the borders were 8 kilometers long, 5 kilometers long. Now it's easier, but we're getting prepared. Should it be the case, we're getting prepared for the next waves. I pray personally that none of this is to happen. I hope that people, as we say, the wisdom comes to those leaders that make decisions, that no war is happening around. Thank you for giving me the chance, Jacqueline and Global Ties Unit. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for allowing me to be emotional with you. Because when we talk about people, it's always about emotions. We're human beings, we're connected. And I believe that what you're doing tonight with this meeting is another message of how tied we are, globally speaking. Thank you.
Mariana, thank you so much. And please do not apologize for your emotions or apologize for being transparent, for your doing passion work. And Global Ties Alabama, we do passion work every day, promoting international relationships in the good times and in the not so good times. So thank you for the work of Moldova for Peace. Thank you for sharing the goodness of the Moldovans who are accepting the refugees into their homes. And we have just a few more minutes. So if there are any questions that we can have answered, we have put in the chat the resource list that Julia referenced. And as Sergey said, anybody who wants additional information, we will share it. I will take the liberty of telling you that Yarina has been in conversation with Rotary International, both here in Alabama, but also in Romania. And she'll be presenting to the local Rotary Club of Greater Huntsville tomorrow. So we are trying to reach out to as many organizations. As you can tell, there's a lot of need, but there are a lot of avenues to donate to, and we would like very much to be able to share that. We have a person from Poland, and how could I not allow him to share a perspective from Poland, especially since we have such a large Polish community here in the Huntsville area. So please, Mr. Olexa, please take 3 or 4 minutes to share the Polish perspective.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, John, for inviting me here. I appreciate it. It's great to see you. It's really difficult to put all the things I would like to say in those 3 minutes. I'm a Polish English translator working here in Poland, in Szczecin, which is actually further away from the border. It's as far as it can be, actually, because it's a seaside city. But I can tell you, I get emotional when I speak about it. It was all a reflex for us when it all started. A reflex because most of us know and have Ukrainian friends. Before the war started, there was, I believe, 1 million officially Ukrainians in Poland, and the unofficial numbers were about 2 million. And most of us have Ukrainian friends, and One of my friends, I spoke with him the other day. We were just arranging business as usual, some things at our software agency. And the next day I knew he was drafted and basically got a rifle and was defending his country, right? So when I say this was a reflex, most of us here, most people I know, actually reacted on instinct. It was very emotional for us. Most of us asked each other, what can we do to help? And as Ms. Turkin said, here in Poland, when we welcomed Ukrainian refugees, they were welcomed not into refugee camps, but they were welcomed in our homes as well. We have special groups set up on Facebook where we arrange accommodation for them, right? So they're our guests. They're not our, I don't know, we just treat them with dignity. We treat them like friends because that's who they are to us. You know, now, though several days later, we can see the smoke and fire from beyond our borders, and it's also different when you hear the bombs, when you see the fire, when you see those people coming to the border, often crying just with the things they had at hands when they were running away. Many of us, people have different ideas on how to help. Like my friend is shuttling people from Lviv to the border, like, willingly. That's an active war zone right now. And he's doing that out of his own, willingness to do so. My fiance and I, we were just gathering supplies. I'm quite proficient with spreading, sharing information. I would say that's part of my job. So for example, when President Zelensky had a speech in the Polish parliament, I noticed that nobody actually translated that. And that was a very powerful speech. So as a translator by trade, I decided to translate that. And I used some of my, let's say, internet skills to spread that information throughout the web. And I know 106,000 people worldwide have seen and passed that video of President Zelensky speaking. So we help find people places to stay here. We have no refugee camps. We have, I would say, transfer centers where people are given whatever they need when they arrive here, including basic, humanitarian needs like clothes, food, toys for children. And there are special info posts where they can find a place where they can stay. And people using, private people using their own transportations, they take them to those destinations wherever they wish to go. Sometimes it's a different country. Sometimes it's within the same city. What else can I say? So yeah, we, as I said, we had about 1 million Ukrainians before the war started, actually. Now I think about 2.5 million have crossed our border. And, we are a 37 million country and 2.5 million population within just a single month. That's also a huge increase when you think about it. So all manner of help is being distributed here. I think people started even before the government did. I would say that the government even capitalized on what the people out of their own willingness to help have done. So we've got all these humanitarian aid, but I know that also weapons, for example, all the military equipment is being shipped, including some of our proprietary Buran missile launchers, which were just designed in 2019, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. I haven't prepared any speech, to be honest. I just, whatever comes to my mind, I'm just trying to pass. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Alexa. I think you gave us a very strong insight into the Polish culture, welcoming people into homes, not having refugee camps. That's what I'm hearing across the borders. And we've run out of time, but certainly stay tuned because we will be hosting another forum on the Ukraine in a couple of weeks. I'd like to close with a quote that's an African quote, but you'll understand when I share it. I am because we are. We are because I am. And so we've heard experiences today of sharing across borders, across cultures. And I am just so thankful for this panel, for this forum and for the work that will continue to take place. Certainly, many of you who are in our audience are associated with other organizations. We need the help of everyone, because I am because we are. We are because I am. Have a wonderful day, and let us continue to pray for Ukraine. Thank you so much.